Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson. Oh, is it just me today? Oh no, it is not. I'm here with Living the Line cartoonist Clarence Doss. Clarence, did I say your last name right? I don't know if I've ever said it.
Yes, that's the way it is. Das, yeah.
And Clarence, we have been talking with each other for quite a while here. I first saw your work on cartoonist kayfabe ringside group. With if you guys are a cartoonist and you're not in that group and you happen to be an old person like me on Facebook, definitely check that out. At the time, you posted some preliminary drawings that you had done for a research project that you were working on, and you wondered,
Mhm.
gosh, what was it that you were asking about? Something about style. Did people have any thoughts about the style
Right, yeah.
that you had posted?
Um, because it was just something. I think it was around the time I'd sort of decided to sort of lean into the cartooning side, the cartoonist side of comic book art, and I was sort of just testing the waters with the style that I was doing with the pages online. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw this, and I saw your description of it, and I thought I was immediately intrigued. And this is about the time that I knew that Strange Death of Alex Raymond was going to come out, and I was starting to sort of sniff around for other things, and I was like, "Oh man, this is such a great thing." So I was wondering if you can just give me the elevator pitch for Salanialo, Path of the Shades, and tell me a little bit about the project.
Sure thing. So the project started off as a research project for a unit I was studying at the University of the South Pacific, and it sort of explores rituals around death and the afterlife in the Itoke or the Fijian culture. And so during my research, I had found this sort of snippets and little bits and stories about a journey through the afterlife, which I worked on with the help of some people from the Fijian Cultural Affairs and the Fijian Cultural Ministry to sort of form into a narrative which had never been done before locally. And then I decided to present it as a comic book. And that was the result, the Saliniello. So it's about a Fijian warrior waking up in the Fijian afterlife, and he goes through the trials that he has to go through to reach his final resting place.
Yeah, and really intriguing use of storytelling in the book, like because the you sometimes get to see events from two different simultaneous perspectives. So, for instance, on the first page, his he's being buried and his wife is crying over
Mm.
his body, and you simultaneously see two streams where you see the spirit side that he's experiencing and the earthly side that they are experiencing as they look at his body, and
Yeah,
really inventive storytelling in terms of the page layouts and things like that.
thank you very much. Yeah, because that's the whole concept. Like the Itoke people have they have this thing called the 100 Nights, where they do a series of tasks for the 100 Nights, and while they're doing it, simultaneously in the afterlife, the spirit is being benefited from these tasks. So some of the things like they won't eat his favorite meal, so he can have his favorite meal in the past, or they'll do things to try and help his wife reach him, and so that's why we had the dual panels. Like they are actually happening at the same time.
Right,
Mm.
and we ended up doing that for the cover as well, where
Right.
we'll insert a few photos here maybe, but the front cover, this very exciting thing that's happening in the spirit world, and then on the back cover, the earthly side of that
Right.
exact same thing.
Because yeah, because the final resting place first of all, the different provinces in Fiji have their own sort of twist on the afterlife story. So this is from the Rewa province, which is actually where I'm from. And the front cover and the back cover, on the back you actually have the actual Nakovandra mountain range,
Mhm.
and then you have the spirit. So it's kind of like the upside down from Stranger Things.
Yeah,
Like you have the actual mountain and then the spirit version of the mountain. Yes.
right.
Hmm.
Very cool. And so we should just say before we say anything else. So the first issue of Path of the Shades is already drawn, already out. You can actually pick it up from local comic shop, or you can get it from the Living the Line website. I'll be happy to mail you a copy. And you're working on issue two right now, and the rough plan is that you'll assemble these into a book at some
Right.
point in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So I'm working on the second issue, which I guess now are more like chapters.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I've got another three stories planned out, and then hopefully by as maybe by the end of the year I'll have another two or three done, and then we'll be looking at like a proper like a trade paperback or something, or like a
Excellent.
book out of it. Yeah.
Right. And then the real reason that I wanted to kind of pick your brain about this for the the Living the Line YouTube channel is you and your wife as well have done some amazing things with in terms of the local marketing of this. And I want to preface the actual questions by saying I met somebody at SPX last year, Small Press Expo, who is the only other person other than you who I've met that I was just like, this person is brilliant. This person has plugged into this, which is finding the actual audience that you know is out there somewhere. This person had made a comic book series that was essentially like a fantasy comic that was fairly realistic, and she was selling it at Renaissance festivals. So
Oh
she
wow.
was traveling from Renaissance Festival to Renaissance Festival and just setting up a booth and selling her comic to the people at the Ren Fair. And it's like, these are not comic people. These are people who are the subject of her story. These are their audience members. So similarly, will you please tell me about some of these amazing, I don't want to call them marketing because it's not really marketing. You're just finding new
Right.
people, right? So how are you
Right.
finding homes for the copies that you have of this book?
Well, in here in the first of all, in the here in Fiji and the Pacific, the book just had a wonderful reception. And we just don't have too many comics, if any comics, coming out of the Pacific, well, out of sort of excluding Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, of course, but like from my region. So when the book came out, it was on the news, and we had it like there was like TVNZ, Coconut TV, ABC. They were doing stories about it because it was a sort of like a cultural comic book.
Yeah,
It was a and the Pacific were storytellers, Pacific Islanders are Pacific storytellers, but everything's been sort of oral history or through dance and music and things and song. So this was a traditional story being told in what I've been sort of calling the new medium in Fiji every time I talk about it, like comics and animation. So yeah, that's crazy, huh? Like how it's a new medium for the Pacific. So yeah, so on the strength of that, the reception's been great. So we did a launch and a read through for it at a local coffee shop at first, and then we just started hitting all the local markets, the bazaars. Whenever something popped up, like an opportunity to sell, my wife is actually selling one of her books as well, so I sort of piggyback with her. And then we had it at the museum because it's
mm,
a cultural book, so the museum picked up copies, and because if it was for academic research, the University of the South Pacific picked up copies, and it's at the cultural center, so it was very easy for people to pick up, and it was being picked up by people who don't necessarily read comic books.
right,
So I mean, so I had like we had like kids picking it up. I had fellow comic book fans picking it up, but most of the time it was being picked up by sort of like just older people, like, or like just people, and I mean older people, like sort of people like in the 60s and 70s or even in their 50s, sort of just having something that they've never visually had. um because a lot of the stuff in the comic book, in Salinial or Path of the Shades, just even just quoting a comment that was made by the people from the E2K Affairs, they were saying that it's just there's never been a visual representation of any of these characters,
right,
and because of the way I had done the book, I had all the designs of the characters are based on Fijian statues, Fijian relics, Fijian artifacts. So none of it. So as much as of it is from my imagination, it's all rooted in Fijian culture,
right.
and I think that was just a really cool thing to have.
And it gives it a really kind of uncanny aspect to the designs as well. Like the gentleman whose ferry ends up taking him
Right.
across the water
Mm.
is monumental in size. He has this very like slightly angular to the front, but then rounded in the back, kind of head, and that's all from a carving, right? Like I
Right.
couldn't
Yeah.
believe it when I saw the photo of the carving. I was like, oh right.
Yeah.
So you just found, I mean, there's a sort of uncovered aspect to it in the sense that all of this information you were able to find it, but you had to piece all these things together. It's not like you could go find a research book that had previously been published and like just
Exactly.
this is how it's going to be, right? You're
Right.
actually
Yeah. I mean, that's
doing
the whole. Yeah. I mean, working with on my postgrad and moving on to the master, that's the whole nature of research. Like you can't really just work on something. I mean, you can draw from something that someone else has done, But but I think the easiest thing for me that happened with this was because I love comics so much, it just became a visual medium, and then I started doing stuff that wasn't done before
Right.
because of that.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, so just because of that, the reception for again, it's just been so good, and it's interesting because before that in Fiji, now we have things like Marvel movies and people love Thor and Spider-Man and things, but before that, the only comic book that people would love in Fiji was like the Phantom.
Hmm.
That's what we were. That's like when you think comic book, you think Phantom, and now it's just nice to have Path of the Shades out there
Yeah.
as well. And it's if you were just here even like now, because like people were just buying books off me like last week. I'm down to like 16 copies from all the from the 400 you sent me, you know. So it's like it is something, it just feels something special. And I really appreciate you guys living the line doing this for me because I just it's just like it's just it's elevated my work. It's given it a platform and it's just given it a voice that I didn't imagine having this time like a year ago, and I'm glad I can be sharing this art. And it's special to me because it's something that's I feel like it's a voice you don't get to hear too often,
Hmm.
especially coming from like not just from
Yeah.
Fiji but from the Pacific. Yeah.
Sure.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I think it's a more remarkable work, and you have made leaps and bounds with your art even since then. I mean, obviously you've been really working hard on it, but I mean, I think that it's a really worthwhile endeavor. But one of the things that's really intriguing about it to me is that you have taken this buried thing and you have uncovered it and you've dusted it off and examined it from all sides and realized that it fits with this other part over here and it goes over here. But then after you're done with all that, it's like not enough that you've reassembled this vase, right? You've got to carry the vase to the people who want to see it.
Right.
And I think that that's an interesting and also probably like underappreciated aspect of this type of, I mean, guerrilla publishing. Let's call it what it is.
Right.
Because like
Right.
I'm the publisher in the sense that like I facilitated it being printed and helped you with the design and it got to you like that. But you are the person working it on the street. You are the person who's walking it to the place and finding the location and finding your audience. And I think that there's an important lesson in there for people who are making comics in an attempt to communicate, which is that who are you communicating to?
Mm.
Uh, and
Yeah.
where are those people? Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like it didn't even feel like work. You know, it's just
Mm.
something that I wanted to put out, and just having it as a comic book and so beautifully printed and everything. It was just it was easy for me. I loved it. I loved being at the markets. I loved being at the open days. I loved being at the museum and just seeing the people's reaction to the book and talking about the book and just the genuine interest for it.
Right.
Like and just every day, like just the other day, I was just yesterday, I was walking out of a music store, and just I went outside and just and some guy stopped me and he was like, "Hey, I picked up a copy of your book from the university from the library." So, and it's a great feeling. I love it, and I don't know if many artists in the States or on a larger scale get to enjoy that kind of
Right.
not exposure, but that kind of sort of back and forth that I've been getting with the book because Fiji
Yeah.
is such a small place.
Right.
So and I mentioned yesterday, like the other day, like if someone messages me where can I get it, and I go, you get it from the university bookshop. Fiji is such a small place that they can just show up there like in 2 hours to pick it up from
Right.
anywhere in the country, you know, or in 3 hours max from anywhere in the country. So
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful experience.
You and I were talking about that in relationship to as a comparison to Abolition of Man. So the Salaniella came out at the same time as the second issue of Abolition of Man, and Carson and I were on a national distributed podcast that has like theoretically 100,000 people, 150,000 people listening to any given episode. But it probably didn't make the sales go up at all for the book, right? Because the process of telling those people where they can get it is so diffuse.
Mm.
In comparison to, if you could imagine, if you're making a comic that's about a biker gang
Mm.
or something like that,
Right.
like why are you not walking those copies to a convention of bikers or going to the local biker bar or something like that,
Mm.
right? I
Right.
wonder if some of the success in the United States of what are called head comics or whatever, drug like underground comics.
mm,
They were sold at head shops. They were sold at
right.
places that sold like pipe paraphernalia and things like that. And people
Mm,
realized, oh, hey, my audience is at these places, right?
right.
You didn't even need a sophisticated distribution system to know, like, okay, I don't want to sell it at all these places. So it's
Mm,
like, I think that's maybe the puzzle there is like, if you are a cartoonist listening to this conversation and you're wanting to reach your audience, well, who
mm,
are those people? Where do they
mm,
gather? How can you communicate with them? And even if
right.
they're not like regionally located to you, how do you make it easy for somebody to
Mm.
connect with your thing? I think that there's some kind of lesson in there, and maybe at some point we'll have to talk with the Renaissance Fair person too.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's such a cool idea. I wonder if she's actually like dressed
Right.
like a traveling like a snake oil salesman or something, like sort of going around. But no, but locally the thing is like I mean like I think I was lucky because Pacific people they are interested in their culture and they're always sort of like there's and there's like and just I think globally there's a movement to sort of preserve and promote indigenous cultures as well.
Right.
So that became the comic book just became a like a cool packaging
Yeah.
for something that was like a traditional store like a traditional thing a cultural thing so that's great but talking in terms of like finding your audience and things like that that is a cool idea like just being able to go to a biker shop and be like hey here's my biker comic
Right.
and it's kind of been like that with me because I've been showing up at like cultural events and yeah like museum events and academic events with the books
Right.
so and even with the second book, again, like I said, I feel like I'm cheating. It's so easy for me locally. But the only downside we have for comic books in the Pacific is that it's so expensive to print anything here.
Mm.
Like I'm like not to give out numbers from your end, but from
Yeah.
my end, if I wanted to print Salinialo here, and I did quotes for it, it
Right.
was like $7,000 for 1,000 copies
Right.
because we have to import the paper, import, and
Yeah.
that's like close to like $4,000 US
Yeah. And so that
for yeah,
and printing in Canada for that same print run, we'd be talking about less than $3,000 for that.
right.
Um,
For a
so
thousand for 1,000 copies.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's $7,000. It's like that becomes so expensive in Fiji. And then to sell the book, you gotta make you like $20 or
Yeah.
$25 or something to get anything back
Yeah.
from it. And that just kills it. You can't sell a comic book for $25.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff we got to sort of work on regionally because
Right.
I feel like when the comic came out, so many artists sort of reached out to me, even out of like New Zealand and Australia, and they were like, "Oh man, it's so cool! You got to book out." And then and the coolest thing here was like, "Oh, you've got an American publisher," like because it's uh and in a weird way that kind of like it's a weird thing to say but it just sort of legit for me. I
Hmm.
feel like it legitimized the book for a lot of people here.
Right.
Like it's like, oh, this is something worth looking into because an American publisher was interested in it, and it's a sad thing. It's the kind of way that things sort of work in the region. So again, yeah, just living the line did a lot for the book, and I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to sort of uh churn out the other chapters and continue
Yeah.
to work with you guys to get to put something like put a proper book out.
Absolutely. No, and I'm very excited about the possibilities. And yeah, that's a very interesting thing because essentially you don't have the infrastructure yet, like
Yeah, no, we
in
don't.
Fiji. Like, and if I was, not the person like on the outside, or if I was solely on the outside and not publishing it, I would look at, we'd be talking to you about like, um, oh, well, this is probably a different video for another time, but
Right.
I would be very curious, like if laser printers, for instance, like
Mm,
refillable toner laser printers, but then you're limited, of course, to working in one color,
mm,
or multi-pass printers, like risograph or
mm,
that type of thing.
mm.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing because, of course, like offset separated printing
Mm.
is very expensive, and
Right.
that might be the actual limitation. Like I'd be very
Mm,
curious to see like what the tech looks like,
mm.
at the printers that you did talk to.
Yeah,
They
I'm
probably
I'm
aren't.
sure there are. No, sorry, go on.
No, they probably aren't printing on an $8 million Heidelberg
Right, right,
unit.
definitely. I'm sure it's to some kind of regional industry standard, but it's just like, well, by the time you end up importing the paper, importing the ink
Mhm.
and the binders and everything, I think, and they got to make their money on top of it. It just sort
Right.
of skyrockets into something ridiculous. Even, but yeah, just when the book came out, the interest for it, and just other artists who came out from the region who now are like, I want to do a book as well, or we're working on stuff
Yeah.
as well, So, and just today, I'm doing something else also being used as a teaching aid for Pacific literature at the University of the South Pacific. So,
That's
just today,
awesome.
I'm doing a talk about sharing Pacific stories through comics. So it's really, I think it's really opened up
Yeah.
like a tangent,
Yeah.
like a food for thought here,
Yeah.
which I'm really excited for. And I would
Yeah.
love to see more Pacific stories coming out in the comic form, and and not just for like Pacific Islanders living internationally who are homesick, but I feel like there could be an audience for it internationally, for just people who like stuff like Primal or Moana, or
Hmm.
like an action or like a horror thing set in a region you don't normally hear from.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, it's a fantastic idea. Uh, yeah, that I don't think we can talk about the other thing that I want to follow up on that, but because you can't. Yeah, okay, we won't.
No, no, I mean, you
Are
can
you
what
are you
the
able
the
to?
thing I mentioned earlier,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, please, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
go.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about the other thing that you're writing then, because I mean that was a
Oh,
very
okay.
exciting bit of
Yeah.
news. I mean, I'd love to hear about it.
Excellent. Yeah. So, locally we have this organization called Film Fiji, and they're like a film. They're a branch of the government that helps facilitate overseas movie shoots. They work with like Tom Hanks, Castaway, Survivor, things like that. And so they were running a workshop with these mentors and industry writers from Australia. So they paired me up with a writer, and then so we're working on a four-part animated series which is about a zombie outbreak in pre-colonial Fiji. So and I've got the whole story start to finish. And it's four animated episodes, 20 minutes each. But I figured and we're supposed to be pitching it and stuff in September. But I thought at the very least, uh, I've got I've got four scripts for four possible issues of a four-part miniseries.
Oh yeah,
So, and I'm totally gonna be drawing it as soon as it's done. I want to draw the whole thing out and have a zombie comic book set in pre-colonial Fiji. Yeah.
that's fantastic. It's a great idea. I was not sure if we could mention it, but I think it's
No, no,
great.
yeah, no. I've been sharing it on my
Oh,
Instagram and everything. I'm
oh, that's
very
great.
excited for it, and if it does get picked up as an animation, because part of the program is we get to pitch it to sort of these industry professionals,
Okay.
and which will be great. But the cool thing is, even though we're working on it with all these mentors and stuff, we've got total rights to it,
Right.
and so I can do whatever I want with the
Yeah.
script, and I'm definitely going to be making another comic book out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
plus, I'm working on the second issue
Right.
of Path of the Shades as well, which is a
Fantastic.
little not to share too much,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit more personal
Okay.
because
Excellent.
yeah, it's the afterlife, but the on it this time is, instead of a Fijian warrior making his way through it, the second chapter has an indigenous, and it's got an Indian, a Hindustani person making his way through it,
Ah.
because in the 1800s, what happened was the British had brought indentured laborers into Fiji to work on cotton and sugarcane,
Hmm.
and a lot of them were sort of from India. That's
Ah.
how my ancestors got here. My
Wow.
great great grandparents came here as part of the sugar trade, and it's called indentured labor, and there's a whole system to it. But if you look it up, it was borderline sort of slavery,
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
conditions were really bad, and a lot of people died on these boats to Fiji.
Right.
So I had this idea of, what if someone dies on a boat as they enter Fiji waters,
Hmm.
and they wake up and they're not, because sometimes as an Indian person living in Fiji who's been here 4 generations, I'm not I'm not mainland India Indian, I'm
Oh, right.
I'm born and bred
Yeah.
Fijian, but like culturally, sometimes it can get very confusing, and it's something that I was hoping to explore to the second book. So it's pretty
Wow.
much an Indian spirit waking up, or a Hindu spirit waking up, and he's far from his gods and he's in a different afterlife, you know? So,
It's
and it's just,
fantastic.
yeah, so I thought it'd be a really cool idea to explore, and
Yeah.
it still taps into the Itoke culture, but it's from
Yeah.
like sort of like from my perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's
Hmm.
fantastic. I can't wait to read it. And
Yeah,
thank you so
I'll
much for
get you some
talking.
pages soon. Oh, my
Well,
pleasure.
yeah, thanks so much for talking to us today, Clarence, and really looking forward to seeing what you do next. And always enjoy seeing the stuff that you do. And if you guys don't follow Clarence on Instagram, you will see a wide variety of amazing stuff, including some. Um, uh, I mean, you've done turtle stuff, you've done Batman
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah, yeah. My two
real,
favorites, the Ninja Turtles, and yeah, and then thanks to you, I got to do that card
yeah.
for the Cerebrus TMNT issue. So that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I loved it. I was like, digging. Did you see this? Get this. Get them on, man.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank
No,
you, Sean, for
no.
for everything you've done for me and for my art and for the books and for everything we'll be working on to
Yeah.
come.
Well, it's my pleasure, man. And if you guys haven't picked up a copy yet, please do so. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
Sullen Yellow, Path of the Shades by Clarence Doss is a really cool ongoing project that Living the Line will be producing. Clarence is a PhD student from Fiji who's studying the myths of Fiji for his doctoral thesis. And part of that study project is that he's producing these comics. They're kind of like Hellboy, where there's these little short stories that capture all of these different mythologies. But then he's using that to wrap the project into his doctoral thesis and then provide educational material where people can come to these comics. You know, they don't have to read his PhD thesis. They can come to the comics and get a more consumable version of the mythology of Fiji.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.